Hello. So today is my 20th Facebook Live Wednesday, and I wanted to start off with this song by Elton John.
Sorry seems to be the hardest word.
Isn't sorry the hardest word to say?
It's sad, so
sad.
It's a sad situation.
Sad situation.
It's getting more and more absurd.
Isn't that true? It's more and more absurd. So I'm going to start Facebook Live Wednesday with my candle, because when we take a breath before we apologize, I think it's a little easier. And the power of apologies is life-changing. I came across this book by Dr. Harriet Lerner. The title is Why Won't You Apologize? Healing Betrayals and Everyday Hurts. So as I was researching apologies and, reminiscing of my own apologies or lack of, I was reminded that I never witnessed my parents apologizing. So they never role modeled the importance of apologies until I met my Prince Charming. You know him as Thomas Gibson. And he taught me that when you apologize, you're not saying that, you're wrong sometimes, but you're apologizing, choosing peace instead of, I am right, you are wrong. What is wrong with you? Why can't you see things my way, right? Which is oftentimes what causes not just days and weeks, but sometimes years of broken relationships, because one person needs to hear the apology and the other person refuses to give the apology. So these are the three things. I wrote notes, so I'm going to have to look at them or else I might forget. Apologizing is not an admission of guilt, right? Oftentimes we think the one who apologizes is weak, or you just don't want to apologize because you don't want to admit or show weakness. So apologizing does not mean admission of guilt. You're actually choosing the relationship over being right. And you're just losing the battle to win the war, and the war might be just to maintain peace. And oftentimes we choose being right. I had a friend who said, the saying, you can either choose to be happy or right. And she said, well, what if we need to be right in order to be happy? Well, it doesn't work that way, right? And oftentimes I hear people who have lost relationships, if it's parents, siblings, best friends, spouses, ex-spouses, and we just do not realize the power of apologizing. So the thing that I have learned is the power of shorter, meaning that you don't overtalk, you do not blame. And sometimes I justify my behavior. I'll say, Chelsea, I am sorry, but, I was tired, I was stressed, maybe I didn't hear you clearly. And then you minimize, when you say sorry, but you're actually deleting your apology. And the person receiving the apology doesn't even hear it. Because when they hear but, they just hear your justification for your behavior, and it doesn't make them feel any better, right? Because apologies should make both parties feel better. So this morning, I listened to someone who lost their mother and brother through a violent murder. And it was from a friend, it was by a friend who murdered her mother and her brother, and she took years and researched it and actually quit her job to write a play about this whole traumatic incident. And then she realized the apology, she needed to forgive herself as well for harboring all this anger and all this pent up frustration. And a lot of us are filled with anger, right? Especially with this lockdown, with this pandemic, a lot of resentment over what's happening. And, sometimes there's no reason to apologize, but if you hold in anger and you hold in resentment, it does build up within you to the point where you want to explode. You might have, just anger explosion, or you might just feel like you cannot contain it anymore and you will never feel at peace. And I had to let go of the anger that I felt towards myself for not helping out with my dad. I lost my dad 4 years ago, and it was really hard to let go of the guilt, which turned into anger, which turned into just the need to just be sorry and apologize to myself. We don't realize that we need to apologize to ourselves as well as others. And another thing that I discovered is the person you're apologizing to doesn't have to be alive and doesn't even need to accept your apology for it to be healing. That's life-changing, because you think that you're going to apologize, and when the other person blames you, the other person is still filled with just immense anger, then you think, why did I even apologize, right? Because it didn't improve the situation. Well, I've learned that to accuse, right, the hurt person as being too sensitive, it's like, oh my gosh, you took it the wrong way, or geez, why are you making a mountain out of a molehill, right? Because you're thinking, why are they so upset? And sometimes it's from something that happened years ago, but that person is holding on to that anger so much that people can't even talk to one another. If it's a sibling, if it's a husband and wife situation, or if it's just best friends, right? You hear best friends no longer talking to each other because of the anger, resentment, and frustration. So what I've learned is people will take in very little of what you have to say if all you want to do is speak to be heard. And I am majorly guilty of that. Talk to any of my family members, and what I do is turn it into a life lesson, which turns into a lecture when all I mean to do is just justify my behavior, especially when I lose my temper. I never witnessed my parents apologizing, and I didn't realize the importance of apologizing. And sometimes, this is a real hard one to digest, is to apologize when you're not even wrong, right? And I read where CEOs of companies, Zoom recently apologized for a massive breakdown, or Zoom just did not work. And it affected millions of people, right, who use Zoom. And even though they realized that it might not be their fault, they actually apologized for just the experience people had of their Zoom not working. And they were actually commended for it, and they were praised for the emotional intelligence. A lot of times when we refuse to apologize, it actually is a sign, and this is hard for me to accept, it's a sign of emotional immaturity, which I had a hard time accepting, because you just think, I'm not going to apologize because I didn't do anything wrong, right? So the notes that I took that I want to share is, when we release this obsession of anger, right, we just hold on to it so much that it internalizes, and it becomes, it turns into cancer. It turns into high blood pressure. It turns into a multitude of health ailments because we can't let it go. And so when I read, I reread parts of my Mama's Gotta Let Go book. And, guys, I don't even remember writing a lot of this stuff. And I think it was just based on a lot of journal entries that I, wrote when I was depressed. I checked out, for 2 years. I was not on social media. People were, texting me, messaging me, asking me if I was okay. And I just needed time to just, go within. Sometimes you just want to go within and not even be around anyone, even your own family. Yeah, I was in my room a lot. And I realized that a lot of it was in denial of the pain that I felt and the resentment maybe that I felt towards myself. I felt like I was a bad mom. I felt like I was a bad wife. I felt like I was a bad daughter. And a lot of it, you know, it ends up being a mental strain, so much so that sometimes our brain just can't even handle, you know, all of the frustration and the anger towards ourselves. So the power of apologizing to others is not just for, you know, the other hurt person to hear the apology, but it's also more for us. Because when we apologize, it has magic to our brain, it's magic to our souls, and it's magic to just our relationships. You'll have, you know, more peace in your life. And even when the person's no longer living, by apologizing for maybe things that you said that you regretted, or maybe behaviors that you exhibited or you engaged in that you regret. I mean, I regret a lot of mean things that I've said to my loved ones. I've regretted just, you know, a lot of things, but you don't feel comfortable in sharing it because it happened sometimes decades ago. But when you realize how much you hurt the people who mean the most to you in your life, when you realize that, you know, apologies can be said decades after the event, and it makes a big, big difference in your overall mental health, right? It makes a big difference in just the relationships in your life. Even if it's an ex-spouse, an ex-boyfriend, an ex-best friend, to your kids. I've had to apologize many times to my girls because, you know, when I lost my temper when they were little, they've never forgotten, you know, when I said mean things to them just because what they said or what they did was an accident. But if it ruined something that, I'll share one brief story that I was thinking of calling Sabrina, my eldest, because we've talked about it. And I don't know if I truly apologized. I'm one not to swear, but I lost it. She was maybe 10 years old. I don't know if she wants me to share this story, but I am going to apologize again for it in person. Well, she's in California, so I will apologize with a phone call. And she was cooking rice. She was not familiar at the time because I did not demonstrate it. I thought she had witnessed me cooking rice, but she poured water into the rice cooker, and the water went all over my planner, which, you know, is my life because it has my schedule, the tutoring sessions, right? Everything that I need to do is scheduled on my planner. It was one of those huge, huge planners that took up the entire counter. And I lost it. And I probably said something like, "What the F were you thinking?" It was just like something that came out of my mouth that I was not thinking correctly. And I apologized after I calmed down. But she, till this day, says it was so traumatizing. And I thought about it a lot today as I, you know, read about the power of apologizing and the power of shorter, not to overtalk, which those of you who know me I do tend to overtalk. And I always think that I'm going to make these Facebook Lives really short, and then I end up going on multiple tracks, right? And I just think that this topic, I just did a parenting tip on it. I posted something on LinkedIn because I think the power of apologizing can really change our mental health. It can change our everyday life because, as this book, Why Won't You Apologizing? Healing Betrayals and Everyday Hurts by Dr. Harriet Lerner, it is a life changer and worth just reading. If you don't want to invest in buying it, it's on YouTube. You know, if you just see little parts of it, there's a podcast, you know, by Brene Brown and Harriet Lerner, and it is just life-changing. So I invite you to just really think about the things that you maybe regret saying, or maybe things that made you super, super pissed off, that you think that you will never ever you're never going to forgive whoever said whatever. Hey, Tracy, thanks for watching. Let me know if you want to go on camera. Aloha to you too. But this power of apologizing. I was married once before. Those of you who know me know that I was with someone for 10 years, married for 5. I said a lot of bad things, and we fought nearly every day. Both of us had really bad tempers. And then when I met Thomas, he made it hard to argue with because he didn't, thought that it was a waste of time, no matter how hard I tried. Now, after 25 years, I realize that sometimes, I don't know, I blame it on being an only child. I blame it on things that I say that I have no control over. But you know what? Yes, Tracy says, I love Brene Brown, total life changer. And it, helps us own our vulnerability, our own authenticity, and really realize that we put so much blame on others for our anger, and we feel so justified, especially when we encounter people who do not see the same, don't believe what we believe. And when it comes to like religious views, when it comes to politics, when it comes to things that we feel so passionate for, we just do not understand, right? And we get so upset. So I've decided, right? Sometimes I forget, but I've decided to agree to disagree, especially when it comes to such passionate belief systems that I have that my husband might disagree on, and it took many years because you get so passionate about your belief system that you don't believe in any other belief system, and you get so angry. But I invite you to, understand that you don't have to believe in the opposing belief system. If you're a strong Democrat and the people in your life are Republicans, you don't have to ice them out in your life. I remember reading about Arnold Schwarzenegger and Marie Shriver, right? And Maria Shriver, right, strong Democrat, married to someone strong Republican, and they just had to agree never to discuss politics. I have to agree to not even watch sometimes these hunting shows that, my husband is so passionate about, his love for hunting, his love for, archery, I can, handle because you're not, unless you're, shooting your bow into an animal, I always say, much to his disappointment or irritation. Oh my gosh, what if it's Bambi's birthday? What if you're killing the mother of, these 10 little piglets? My hubby and I have vowed to not talk politics until after the election, says Tracy. Yes, we just have to disagree to disagree. Otherwise, we will just have major conflict, right, within our relationships. And sometimes these little conflicts turn into, we've all known, right, relationships that end up where people just don't talk to each other for years, I want to end with a little story of my dad. He was a strong proponent of peace, but I think it was with other people. There was a situation at a family gathering where he wanted to help a brother and sister achieve peace because they didn't talk to each other for decades and no one knew why. And at the end, they refused to talk to each other. So I thought it was interesting because the past few days, I relived the anger and resentment he felt towards, I think it was more towards Thomas, and it was just kind of funny because it was over a desk that he purchased for my daughter, Chelsea. She was probably around 10, and he purchased a desk for, to have a really nice work area to do her homework. But he wanted us to put the desk in the living room where the TV was. And Thomas said, no, we are not going to put it in the living room. And he said, I bought the desk, so you need to put it where I want it. And I went on a mini vacation, a last minute spontaneous vacation with my friend Daryl. And when I came back, he said, you know what? This desk has just caused just immense emotional pain and conflict. And I was like, what? This desk? And he said, yeah, your dad wants this desk to be in the living room. And I was thinking, we can't have the desk in the same room as the TV, right? How's she going to totally focus on her studies when the TV's there? So I called my dad, and he says, you know what? I bought the desk, and I think the desk should be in the living room. And I said, you know, but Daddy, you always told me that I needed, right, a very, just important work area where there are no distractions. And I think TV and a desk just, it doesn't make a very positive, like, area to focus on. And he said, but Chelsea wants it in the living room, so I think it should be in the living room. Well, that desk caused years of just uncomfortable feelings. It got to the point where my dad said, and we're strong, like, birthday people, we celebrate, birthdays big, with balloons and dinners and leis. And so my dad says, we're only going to celebrate the girls' birthdays, knowing that it would be my mom, me, right, my daughters, and no one else's birthdays, meaning not his birthday or my husband's birthday. So Thomas just laughs. He's such a good sport. He goes, you know what? We don't need to celebrate my birthday. And I said, no, we have to celebrate your birthday. And he goes, I choose peace. And that's when it hit me, years later, that Thomas took the high road. And he said, you know what? I'd rather have your dad at peace. Not to the point where he's going to, leave the desk in the living room. But he just decided to be fine without going out for dinner with my parents. We would go out to dinner just with the girls and, Thomas and me, but not as, with grandma and grandpa. And the girls didn't understand. Why can't we go to dinner with dad and grandma and papa? And we just said, Papa's decided not to celebrate like birthday dinners. We're only going to do it for the girls. And they wondered why. And I just said, I don't know. Ask Papa. And he just said, you know what? I don't know. I just think it's a better idea to just celebrate the girls' birthdays. So that's my little story on the power of apologies. And just forgiving ourselves for anger, forgiving ourselves for just, major years of resentment over something that might have happened when you were 8 years old, something that might have happened with an ex-boyfriend or an ex-best friend in middle school. It really isn't worth the mental anguish and the mental strain, because our brain will keep that anger and hold onto it. And do you really want to go there? Especially with this pandemic, there is so much anger all around. And with this lockdown, it's not something that I want, but there's nothing I can do. So I accept it. I know Thomas is sad about not being able to golf. And I am sad that I'm not able to meet, usually I meet students at, fast food restaurants, Zippy's, Walmart, McDonald's. And now I realize, you know what? And I tell my students, we can't do anything about it, but we can accept it and make the most of it, right? So when it comes to apologizing, I want to remind you, number one, release the obsession of anger. Number two, apologize without the but. I'm sorry, but you were so irritating. I'm sorry, but what you did was just unforgivable, right? We want to say that, but it really discredits your apology. And lastly, what I failed to do, the power of shorter, which means you don't need to justify it with tons of words. You don't have to justify it with, very long explanations, which is what I'm guilty of. And often we tend to blame. I wouldn't have acted this way had you not fill in the blank, right? Had you not pissed me off, had you not disrespected me, had you not done what you did, right? We would not be here. I would not be angry at you. I would not have said all those angry words had you not pissed me off and said what you did. Yes, Tracy is saying focus on what you can control. And right now, We can't control the government. We can't control the lockdown. We can't control the pandemic. I've had a lot of parents, grandparents voice to me, oh my gosh, this is so ridiculous. You know, we need our kids back in school. We need to, have this vaccine done. We need COVID to be over. Yes, I get it. But guess what? We have absolutely no control over it. So let's light a lot of candles. Just kidding. Just take a lot of deep breaths. Focus on what we can control over. And, a lot of times I feel exactly the same frustration. I feel exactly the same anger. Tracy, yes, she's saying that she's guilty of this too. I think all of us are not knowing how to handle it because we've never had to handle a pandemic. One of my middle school students last year, she had to learn about the Black Plague, about wearing masks, about what they did. And little did we know that months later, we would be going through the exact same health. It's just crazy, right? But anyway, I've overspoke as usual. Thank you for watching. And I just invite you to be curious about your anger instead of, being really upset that you're angry. Does that make sense? Instead of being upset at your anger, be curious about it. Why are you upset? Normally, it's because you feel life is unfair. Someone either betrayed you or did something that caused you immense anger. Sometimes it's anger that someone left us, like my dad. Why did he have to die before, we weren't done yet. We weren't done enjoying him in our lives, and it's very, very common to be angry at people who passed away. It's very common to be at the things that we've said that we regretted, but we don't want to make peace because guess what? It takes vulnerability. It takes a lot of courage to apologize when you're not wrong. So I've made a vow, and I'm sure I might break it, but it's never too late to apologize. So make that phone call. Apologize to someone that maybe you were not wrong, but you're apologizing if you value the relationship. You're apologizing if you value your mental health. And you're apologizing just to be the better person. Because I'm going to end it with this statement. Whenever someone pushes your buttons and gets you so angry, guess what? It's an opportunity for you to be the better person and to not let it destroy your relationships. If you value them, it does not, don't let it destroy your inner peace, right? Because your inner peace is totally damaged when you hold in anger, when you hold in resentment, and when you just hold in just major frustration. So that's my Facebook Live Wednesday. Today is the 20th Facebook Live that I've done. And listen to that song, Sorry Seems to Be the Hardest Word by Elton John. It's something that I think all of us have difficult doing, and some people are just not ones to say I'm sorry. My dad actually never said I'm sorry, but I felt it. And he had his own way of apologizing without words. But sometimes words can be, right, magical. Sometimes you can just say, you know what, I'm really sorry for hurting you. And another thing I'm going to end with, I know I've said I'm going to end it like 10 minutes ago, but really listen and ask the person you hurt. I'm really wanting to listen to why you're hurt and what you need to tell me. I'm ready to listen without justifying why I said or did what I did. But it's really important for me to listen. And I really want to understand why I'm upset. Not an easy thing to do, but just something to ponder about. And I will see you next Wednesday. Follow my YouTube channel. Can't believe I'm actually saying those words. YouTube channel name is Letting Go with Aloha. You can find me on Instagram, Mama's Gotta Let Go. My public Facebook is Karen, middle initials KC Gibson, and I have a private Facebook group called Mama's Gotta Let Go. If you message me on my public page or email me at kgbrainbuilders@gmail.com, or I have another email, easier to understand or remember, Karen@lettinggowithaloha.com. I don't really talk about my website much, but if you're curious, you can find me and look at my website. I worked really hard on it. Took years. I mean, not years, felt like years. Months of tears and apologizing to myself for the anger and frustration. And the website is lettinggowithaloha.com. Thanks for watching, and I will be continuing to post my parenting videos for you who are interested in more parenting tips. And if you want to be interviewed, please contact me. I'm looking for uncles, aunties, grandparents, anyone who has a message for parents that you feel parents need to learn about. Please message me. And thank you. Sorry for taking so long. Bye.